drink.
All my best friends say you are the worst thing that happened to me.
I love you.
I knew it. Psych.
Bye.
I have to go to that stupid therapist.
Okay, eventually, a person has to start taking responsibility for their own life.
You trying to fight me? Because we can go.
You say you love me, but you don't.
What are you doing?
What? Me and my girlfriend were just making out.
You're the Worst. The all-new season premieres tonight at 10, only on FXX.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Chris, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Congratulations on season 3. I know you're shooting it right now, but congratulations on being a part of what I think is one of the best shows on TV.
That is very kind. Yeah, it's so surreal to be here and talking about the first episode, and we're literally filming episodes 12 and 13 right now. So I haven't actually finished.
Do you feel like distance from the first episode at this point?
Completely.
Yeah.
I think the joy of the show is that it's able to change tone every episode. You know, something happens which takes one character in a different direction. And of course, we're so close that we drag the other 3 along with us. So by episode 13, feels like a different show now. It's great.
Let's talk about the first season versus the second and maybe even this season and how the show, I think, has kind of changed. Because when it first started, the title itself, You're the Worst, is like a means in which you're selling a show about hilariously bad people. But the show sort of had to warm up to them a little bit and had to give you a bit of stakes when it comes to why they're bad and who they are. Were you ever surprised at where Stephen Falk, the creator, ended up taking your characters and the reasons that he kind of started giving them?
Never surprised where he was taking us, but more kind of excited. Getting these scripts is like getting a Christmas present. We're looking at them going, oh my, that's taking us there. But in the first season, for the first half of the first season, I think they were far more unlikable than they've ever been.
They were more sort of Always Sunny-ish in the sense where they're just
Yeah.
like unlikable for the, and I love It's Always Sunny,
Yeah, me
but
too.
unlikable for the sake of being unlikable and for
Yeah.
the joke. Whereas
And then as the season progresses, you understand why they behave the way that they do. And I think season 3, we really explore the depth of those demons. And they still say and do ridiculous things. Of course, it's not going to suddenly become like you're the sweetest. It's always going to be nasty. But you understand where that comes from. Mm-hmm. You know, we are products of our parents. We are products of our surroundings, and we really explore that.
everybody on the show feels really in tune with each other and with the writing. After a certain period of time on the show, did you find the writers writing for you guys and Stephen sort of coming to you with whatever ideas that you may have had for the character or why you might
absolutely.
be doing
I think definitely this season they're writing for us far more than they ever have done before. Stephen has picked up on the fact that I like pronunciation. I'm very big on big words. And so this season, he's given me these massive speeches, and I underline any word that I, A, can't pronounce, or B, have no idea what it means.
So he's trying to stump you.
So he stumps me. So I look back on the page and think, I am so unintelligent, because I'm thinking, I have no idea what Jimmy's actually saying here. So I got myself a thesaurus app and a pronunciation app so that I could get these things right, because that'd be the worst thing in the world if he was saying a stupendously large word and he didn't know A, what it meant, or B, how to say it. So
Can you think of one of the words that he's thrown at you?
Give me a second.
Take your time.
It was, misanthropic came up a couple of times.
Oh, that's a word that I think is a defining characteristic of the show.
Thank you. Worst. I didn't know what that meant. No, I think, what was it? It was, aphebophobia. Do you know what that is?
No, what is that?
Scorching aphebophobia, which is a fear of young talent.
Interesting. So a fear of being kind of like pushed out?
It's a fear, say, for example, someone who works in an office and has been here for 20 years thinks of themselves as very established in this environment, and then someone comes in who seems to be, bless you, seems to be more intelligent or more kind of up-to-date than that person is. That person has aggression towards that person. That's aphebophobia.
I've experienced that.
Yeah?
Myself towards others.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that.
I don't know if I'm aware enough to notice anybody else experiencing it towards me.
Ethnocentrism.
Ethnocentrism, that I feel, do you want me to guess?
Go on.
I feel like ethnocentrism is the, I almost, ethno-nationalism, ethnocentrism, you only believe in your own ethnicity, or your ethnicity you feel is the most important, or
Yeah.
that's all that you can kind of see in your worldview?
Exactly. Very good. Very good.
You would have
Yeah, that
no,
deserves a round of
clap.
applause.
It makes me feel horrible that I forced them into clapping for that. I did horrible on my
I have a bit of a phobophobia going on here.
So what's it like for you to kind of do a comedy show that ended up having lots of stakes in regards to the comedy? The jokes now and the behavior has emotional stakes.
Yeah, I think it was really important to look into the whole psyche of a human relationship. We never wanted to be that. If you think about romantic comedies, right, over the last 10, 15 years, I believe that we've been brainwashed into thinking that a relationship is boy meets girl, it's all very exciting, then something goes wrong, then they break up, then they mend their ways and walk off into the sunset together. It's always been that. I've always thought in romantic comedies it is that. And it's not. There's a lot of darkness in every relationship. If we're going to do a true-to-life modern romance tale, you have to show the darkness. And Stephen said, I think one of the characters says at one point, you've got to wear your stains on the outside. And I think that's why people find it relatable, because it's not just, I love you all the time. It is, I love you, but I've got an awful lot of stuff going on that either you want to stick around for or you don't.
And I also think one of the things that it explores that in modern relationships, it's really hard to stick around. You're constantly trying to reinforce why you're sticking around. You know,
I think we live in the hardest time I know that there is to find love.
Yeah.
I think in a way we have too many options.
Well, so much of love is about, and we'll just get into it. So much of love is about sort of accepting somebody and being like, I am going to love this person.
Yeah.
You have to actually be
I'm going to love you, warts and all.
Love is commitment in many ways. And, you know, everybody wants to believe that it's someone you meet and you say, I'm in love with this person, it's going to be like this. It's like, no, you have to constantly stay in love with this person, you know?
It's registering whether you want to evolve or not as an individual, which Jimmy and Gretchen both don't want to do. And I can compare it to myself. Do you know, I used to live with 4 guys in London, and one was a musician, I was an actor, the other was a model, the other worked in the music industry. We had such a great time, all the time. It was brilliant. And then I met my now wife, and it got to the stage where we were going to move in together. And I had a real moment of, do I want to let go of that life that I love so much, even though I love her and I want to try? And it's such a big risk. And people these days, and have always, not been brave enough to take that risk. Jimmy and Gretchen are exactly the same. They're comfortable in their current chaos. So why would they want to invite further failure?
I think what they also have, and what the seasons of the show, and how I see it, is the second season is when a couple sort of starts to get to know each other even more and starts to really see those warts and come up against each other and start hitting each other and be like, do I really want to stick around for the ugly things that have to do with this person? And then once you get past that, you get to the real commitment where it's like, okay, now things are going to get kind of boring. How do I stick around for that?
And then you say the L word to each other, and then what happens then?
Yeah, where do you go from there?
I mean, what are you meant to do? Again, going back to the brainwashing, I don't know whether you'll agree or not, but when you're younger, when you're leaving college, there seems to be a timeline on when you should meet someone and when you should get engaged after you meet them, when you should get married, how many people should be at your wedding. And then when you have children, you should have 2 children. There are no rules anymore. There should be no rules anymore. It's all down to the individual happiness. And I think the show explores the fact that we have been brainwashed with this ideal of the perfect life and the perfect family. So when things like clinical depression come up, how am I going to take that on? Oh, well, I love you, so I'm going to stick around. But for Jimmy, it takes him a while to work that out.
Because clinical depression never was a part of the model that we grew up on. There was never a romantic comedy where it was like, boy meets girl, boy breaks up because there's a problem, they get back together, then he realizes she has clinical depression and decides to stick around and still love her.
That was never going to happen.
There was never that fourth act.
It'd be interesting, actually. I don't know the answer to this, but it'd be interesting to see whether Stephen knew that Gretchen had clinical depression when he wrote season 1. Or whether that came later. I don't know, but I think it's important that none of us knew that until it happened. When it comes to the scripts, we get them last minute. We never know what's happening next, so we don't make any prejudged ideas in terms of our performance, and I think that makes it more real again.
Let's go for a lighter thing for a minute. The sex scenes, obviously, are so intense. I mean, the first sex scene of the first episode of the 3rd season is a cable sex scene. You just happen to be covering Aya Cash's nipple with your hand.
Yep.
Other than that, it would be on a Cinemax show.
I know.
Do you guys know how you're getting away with this? Is it just because you can't show a nipple and that's it?
It's a lot easier now because Aya and I are like best friends and we're very, very comfortable with each other. I think
You're both married too, right?
We're both married, and we're both friends with our others' spouses. It's very odd. And
Do your spouses share looks with each other every now and then? Like,
we did get a great photo at an event recently with Aya and I in the middle doing our classic face, and our spouses on either side of us going. I think they have to be comfortable with it, and we have to be comfortable with it. Otherwise, it won't work. They say, oh, don't worry, it's going to be a closed set. All right, okay, what is a closed set? Like they shut all the doors and then just leave the camera on? No. There's 10 people. 10 people who, I think back to the pilot when we did that sex scene in the pilot. And I walked into my trailer, and usually our costume is in the corner. On this occasion, it was the first day, the first scene of my first American job.
the sex scene in the pilot was the first day?
The first day, and I walk in, it was a huge baptism of fire, and there was just this sock hanging up. I was like, well, what do I do with that? And the costume supervisor came in and said, I didn't know what size you were, so basically we have...
Like the biggest size.
Small, medium, or large. What would you like? Hang on. If I say large and it doesn't fit, it's going to fall off. If I say small, I look like medium. So I just said, right, let's go with a solid medium. And then there's...
And then you can put the medium on and go, it's kind of tight, but I think it works, but it's still tight.
And I'm FaceTiming with my family and going, oh, I'm so nervous about my first scene. And I get changed and I put this silly little sock on. And then it doesn't attach itself, so you have to get like this tape, like sellotape. Do you have sellotape over here? What do you call it? Like masking tape. Right. Between the top of the sock and my skin. Now, it's there for a while, but when you're in the heat of the moment doing those scenes and the heat of Los Angeles, at one point, Aya and I just heard, and I was like, yeah, that was quite a good take. And I'm stood there, and she went, and I was like, oh no, hanging out completely. I think once you hit that point of total embarrassment like that, that's where Aya and I became great friends, and we were like, right. And now we're naked more than we're clothed, so...
Well, that was probably a great idea on Stephen's part to have that be the first thing that you guys shot together, knowing that there were probably going to be more sex scenes and that it was going to be, the humor of the show was going to be kind of based around intimacy. Sure. Might as well throw you into the fire immediately. Yeah,
and I'm glad they did. I resented him at the time, but I'm glad that they did. But the difference between the two massive sex scenes, the one in the pilot and then the one at the beginning of season 3, is that the first one, I feel like they're just showing off their moves. You know how people do on that first one-night stand. You're like, how many moves can I get this person back? And you're like doing all this. And the third season, it's more kind of they're connected again. Right. Even though it's quite graphic at the end when he's holding her head on his shoulder, it's like after everything that happened in season 2 with the clinical depression, they are now connected. They're now back together. And that's why Stephen put it in, which I thought was really clever.
Do you think there's something about these two characters where the show is kind of saying that no matter how much you may not want a relationship, no matter how much you may not fit into a relationship, most people, 98% of people, still need the connection that comes along with intimacy that is in a relationship.
Yeah, there needs to be every facet of the relationship that we want. It has to remain all the time. If they suddenly didn't have the sex scenes anymore, you would wonder what was going on. There's mutual masturbation continuously during season 3, and I mean,
where did that come from? I noticed that in the show.
No.
The two of them, to be clear, the two of them sit under blankets together and masturbate each other for extended scenes.
Whilst other people are in the room.
Yes.
I mean, that is awful. You know, I think it's in episode 2 they're both doing that, and then Dorothy walks behind them just trying to grab a sweater from behind them. It's just so rude. They're very comfortable in each other's company, let's say.
Are you comfortable in your character's skin?
Yeah, I think I put on that plaid shirt or my boxer shorts and I can become him. See, I wear quite skinny shirts and skinny trousers, and then I put on these big oversized jeans for Jimmy and my plaid shirts and kind of become him, which is great, but I do feel totally comfortable. Season 1 was different. I think going back to the tone of the show, I didn't really understand what the tone was because it was a brand new show. So you're still trying to find your feet with things. So I reckon for the first 3 episodes, I was still quite lost. And now we're also comfortable with each other and we know each other's performances that we can fit right in as naturally as people want us to be, hopefully.
You sort of notice with great comedy shows, the second and third season are where the shows really figure out their tone and everybody's working together. It's kind of the opposite with dramas, where like the first season
it's the opposite
is
in
amazing.
England, actually.
Really?
Well, yeah, I've done the 3rd season of quite a few shows, and it seems like that's the one where everyone drops the ball a little bit. But
we're done.
Yeah, I've done a couple of these, might as well do a 3rd one. What? This is where we have really kind of stepped up. This is where we had to beat the impact of last year, and learn all the lessons that we didn't learn from last year as well.
Did Stephen want a British actor initially? Was the character always British?
No, the character was American.
Really? Because you play up a certain British smarm with your character that's particular to, I think, a British smarminess.
Yeah, I can really go to town, can't I? I think he's, the part was American. It was an American schlubby, out-of-work writer living in Los Angeles, and the audition came through, and...
It was Stephen.
Yeah, it was Stephen, yeah.
It was creator Stephen Falk.
Sometimes I do think, oh, this is you, isn't it? And the audition came through, and my American accent is a lot better now, but at the time it was, yes, I am American.
So you Borat.
I was Borat. I will play Jimmy in this show. And then send it off and surprisingly never hear anything again. But I read the script and I thought, and I had this huge monologue, and it was quite ranty. It was proper Jimmy, a lot of words I had to look up. And I thought, I spoke to my manager and I was like, I really want to give it a go in English. If I lose, I lose, but you might as well give it a shot. And we sent it off, and then 2 weeks later, they asked me to fly out to Los Angeles to test. And I read with Aya, who plays Gretchen, and a week later, I got the job.
And what did they say? Did they start writing for you and sort of giving you sort of more of a British background, and then at the same time asking you to? Did they ask you to play it up at all? The sort of Britishness of the character?
They are very mean about British people in the show.
I'm trying not to be mean about it right now.
There's always been stereotypes with Brits that have come across in American projects before that have been very funny. But with this show, it's like they're taking the mick out of me and Jimmy and helping the audience laugh all at the same time. There's one scene in this season where I ask Edgar to go and get my usual writing snacks from the British speciality store. And then I list all these Leamingtons, Fluffingtons, Rum Christophers, things like this that the writers think are proper candies that you would get in England. But because they sound so British, I've got to say it. So, yeah.
What do your British friends think of it?
They love it.
Oh, okay.
It's a great. I think the humour really lends itself to British comedy as well at the moment. I think comedy's really changing at the moment, and people are wanting to see a little bit of darkness and a little bit of lightness. I mean,
I think people are wanting to see more stakes to their comedy. I would agree with that. I mean, you have something like the American Office, which was great all around, but everybody really started buying into that when Michael started having relationship problems and emotional problems. And I think that was a surprise for a lot of comedy writers that they could sort of start adding that stuff to the shows.
Isn't it more interesting giving it that dynamic? I've loved,
Especially since there's no laugh track anymore, too.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm personally not a fan of the 3 jokes a page studio sitcom. In England, there's so many shows where you're told when to laugh, you're told when to emote. Aren't we intelligent enough now to make our own decisions on that? And, people ask all the time, don't you think it was a big risk, like taking on a dark subject matter, as we do every so often? And I'm like, no, this is real relationships, and it should be portrayed this way. And I think that's why the show keeps growing.
Absolutely. I'm going to open it up to the audience for questions. Does anyone have any questions out there?
Hi, Chris.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Thank you for being here.
Thank
so
you.
What were the other challenges for you to transition from Britain to America when you pursued your acting career going forward as it progressed?
Yeah, it's been. I'm eternally grateful. When I first came over on the plane, I really was petrified. I knew nothing about Los Angeles, nothing about Hollywood, and I've had to learn lessons. I mean, I still get beeped at every day in my car. I'm such a bad driver that only because I drive too slow, so people don't like that. It's like, get off the road. And in the first year, I was petrified by that, and now I just kind of go, hey, this is all right. This is just LA. I think it's really important not to get carried away. There is a certain flair to Los Angeles that people sometimes get swept up in. And I think because, A, I have a family and I live in England, keeps me grounded. But also, secondly, I've had like 10 years on and off of being in and out of work. I know what it's like to be unemployed and desperate. I know what it's like to audition for a role that you put your heart and soul into and then you never hear anything again. So ever since I've come to America, I really have tried to enjoy every single day. And if it doesn't last forever, then it's not meant to be. But I'm just enjoying it at the moment.
How did you respond to the sort of industry element of LA when you moved there? There's something, LA compared to any other city, even if there's entertainment going on in the city, LA, like, your cab drivers are talking about box office receipts that weekend.
They really are. The conversations over there are, and everyone's in the industry, everyone. Yeah. Like if I was in Manchester walking down the road and they said, all right, love, what do you do for a living? Like that. And I'd say, well, I'm an actor. Oh, bloody hell. Do you not work like down mine with the others? No, I don't work in a mine. I'm an actor. I just told you. Oh, bloody hell. Like that. They're all like this. But over here, it's, hi, what do you do? You're an actor. All right, yeah. Like everyone else. Yeah. Everyone else. And so there's nothing big or small about it here. You're just a part of the LA family. And there's some wonderful people. I've made some great friends with people over here.
Great. Next question.
Hi, I wanted to know what advice would you give your character, whether it be about love or life?
I would give, the advice I give to Jimmy, to be brave, to actually go for something. He's so terrified of everything going wrong. He's so terrified of failure that he'll never take that step to do it. And that has been both of their problems from the beginning. But then again, if he wasn't afraid that some stuff was going to go wrong, then we wouldn't have the show that we were going to have. If he suddenly went, okay, yeah, I need to say I love you. I need her to move in, and I need us to get married and stay together forever. We wouldn't have a show, and you wouldn't have interesting characters to watch. So I would suggest in real life that he were to be a bit more brave, but as an audience member, I don't want him to.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, buddy.
So I've always read and heard about comedy in England being different than comedy here in America. So what I wanted to know is, what's your observations on similarities and differences between what works here but may not work over there, and vice versa?
I think Ricky Gervais changed comedy for me completely. He brought a stillness to his performance, plus the cringe-worthy character was born when he did David Brent in The Office, and that documentary style shooting of the show became a very big thing. I love watching characters over here that are flawed. I think that's what people love the most. You don't want a heavily successful, everything's going right for you character, do you? It was just boring. So
You want that person to be taken apart.
you do, yeah. Which is so mean, isn't it?
If I tuned into a comedy and it started with someone who was very successful and life was great, I'd be like, okay, by the end of the first act, all of this will be taken apart, right?
Yeah. And if it isn't, I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think now across the pond there are, on both sides of the pond rather, there are writers now who are recognizing this is what is selling because we want to watch that, and B, it's actually funnier. We like seeing people achieve and then fail and then achieve again, whether it's in professionally or personally. I think it's just fun. I'm excited for comedy at the moment. I think it's a really good time, and hopefully we'll get another season, and we can keep doing it as well.
Absolutely. I think you will. The season premiere is tonight?
Yeah.
Congratulations, Chris. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you all so much.